one. So the big sannyasis were there, and they were going to go on the morning walk to Venice Beach with Prabhupada. And he motioned to Raghu to come, and had Raghunath come inside the car and sit next to him. And for the next 2 or 3 mornings, he took Raghu on the morning walk with him. And so I thought, Raghu didn't get a cookie, but Raghu got to go on the morning walk. So the pure devotee always does wonderful things.
I mean, there was a little bit of a push and a shove, you know, to get near his company, but I was determined to stand in that spot. I didn't want to fall asleep during his classes, so that's one of the reasons I stood. And I used to meditate on how, in his hands, playing the kartals, and I would sing right into his right ear. And on one occasion, I was chanting, and I was thinking to myself that really I don't know the significance of what I'm chanting, but I know that it gives a lot of pleasure to Prabhupada. So let me, with that spirit, chant selflessly, just for his pleasure, no other motive. And traditionally, after the class, there would be a short kirtan. And so there would generally be some vying for the microphone and who was going to lead. And I remember on one such occasion, Sudama prevailed, Sudama Maharaj, to lead the kirtan. But just as he began to lead, Prabhupada stopped him and turned to me, "Let this boy lead." And so I was very much moved by that, how he had felt my sentiment and my thoughts and my heart with regard to the chanting. And he taught me what was the right spirit behind the chanting, that it should be chanted only for the pleasure, obviously, of God and Guru.
There was a discussion about who initiated book distribution in America, who should get the credit. And they were talking about Keshava and Karundar. And Prabhupada stopped. He said, no. Jayananda, he was the first. Because Prabhupada didn't actually see book distribution just from the perspective of somebody who went out and sells the books. In a real sense, he saw it from the perspective of the person who paid for the book itself to be produced. So then he said, where's Jayananda? Call Jayananda. So Jayananda happened to be on the walk, but he was way in the back. So then everyone turned, and somebody said, Jayananda Prabhu. And he came walking up, and he stood right in front of Srila Prabhupada. His chadar was over his head. He had a transcendental look about him, you know. And he was smiling at Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, you were the first, were you not? And Jayananda said, what is that, Srila Prabhupada? He said, you were the first to organize book distribution. And Jayananda said, well, I don't know, Srila Prabhupada, if I was the first. He said, yes, you were the first. You get the credit. You printed my teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So Jayananda, I remember he said, thank you, Srila Prabhupada. He just said, thank you. And I was new devotee. I was just watching everybody interact with Srila Prabhupada. And I remember that particular experience. You know, how affectionate Prabhupada was to him and how much he wanted to give him credit.
Srila Prabhupada had a fire sacrifice. One of his sannyasis had become involved with a woman. And so Prabhupada announced that he was going to marry them. And everybody was very surprised because we didn't know that that could happen. Prabhupada gave a talk about Krishna consciousness, and he initiated the woman, and then he married them. And he made it clear that he was caring for us, and he was keeping us engaged in Krishna service. He didn't want us to go away. He didn't want us to give up. If we couldn't serve in this capacity, then he wanted us to serve in whatever capacity we could. It was so kind and fatherly of Srila Prabhupada, the way he treated the whole situation. Later, I heard a tape of a conversation Srila Prabhupada had with another sannyasi who had left and married a woman. And then after some time, he came back, and Prabhupada accepted this lady and initiated her. She did some wonderful service. I remember the conversation. The sannyasi was saying to Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya rejected one of his followers for just looking at a woman lustfully, and yet I have given up sannyas and I have gotten married. So does that mean that you reject me? And Srila Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so he can reject like that. But I am only his humble servant, and you are all helping me, so I can never reject you. It was so kind. Srila Prabhupada's total detachment and total kindness. There was never anything egotistical or material about Srila Prabhupada.
Spread this Krishna consciousness movement. Parama Ananda Kanda. People will be happy. Our mission is to see Sarve Sukhina Bhavantu. We don't want to see that we exploit somebody else and I become happy. No. We want to see everyone happy, but they do not know how to become happy. Therefore, we are trying to spread this Krishna consciousness movement that everyone will be happy. Yeah. Swaha, Swaha, Swaha. Brahmanya, Devaya, Brahmana, Hidaya, Jagaditaya, Krishnaya, Govindaya, Namaha. Krishna is Go Brahmanita. He takes care of the cows and the Brahmanas. In other words, in a human society, if there is no protection of the Brahmana and cow, then it is demonic society. Therefore it is said, Go Brahmana Hitaya. The Brahminical culture must be maintained. Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna.
He seemed very happy to just be in Mayapur, which at the time it was almost in the middle of nowhere. You know, it wasn't like Vrindavan, you know. We go up and down the road. There was lots of activity, but here it was just very peaceful, and Prabhupada really enjoyed it. Sometimes, like in the afternoon or the morning, he would just go out with his beads, walk